Hello again. In this episode about rowing technique, I thought we'd take a look at the subject of rhythm. Rhythm is the big one, really. It's the big ticket in rowing, isn't it? Because we talk a lot about individual elements of technique, but when it comes down to it, a good row or a good race, people always say the rhythm was fantastic, and they sort of credit the rhythm for the reason that they've gone fast and have done well. And conversely, if it hasn't gone so well, the first thing people say is, well, the rhythm was terrible, or it came apart and it wasn't right. But when you ask them, tell me what are the ingredients of a good rhythm, or what is a bad rhythm, and importantly, how do you get from a bad rhythm back into a good rhythm, quite often people struggle. They struggle to put it into words and to explain what those elements are. And of course, we need to do that if we're going to be able to get a good rhythm every single time and avoid poor rhythm. So that's what we want to have a look at. So I think a good place to start with rhythm is to talk about it in a fairly broad sense of what's our concept of rhythm. And rhythm is around us in other examples before we actually get to talk about rowing rhythm. For instance, we've got the rhythm of riding a bike. The pedals just go round and round and round, and they go around evenly, and that's a kind of rhythm. An old-fashioned clock with a pendulum goes tick, tock, that's a kind of rhythm, obviously. So even as an idea to get in the boat with the sense that there's a work phase and a recovery phase is a starting point. But the rhythm in the rowing boat we know isn't equal. It's not a one-to-one rhythm. It's maybe more like, if you had a yo-yo and you sort of throw the yo-yo away it goes with some energy, and then it winds itself back in under returning that energy that you've given it. That would be a similar sort of image. Or maybe like pushing a youngster on a swing. So you've got the push starts here and it goes away with a bit of an impulse, and then it comes back up and sort of fills up your hands or your body again with the weight of the swing up here, and then you push and away it goes again. That maybe gives you a little bit more of a sense of a rowing kind of rhythm between the power phase and the recovery phase. But we need to obviously be more specific than that. So I usually start off by looking at the main elements, which I see as these. We've got the power phase, which is all about acceleration here, creating energy, and the recovery phase here, where that energy is returned to us. If we accelerate well, so that would be a little bit of acceleration. That would be a bit more. That would be a bit more. The more we accelerate, as we've seen before, the more time we generate, and that's ratio. That's a big part of rhythm. But two other bits which I think also are important ingredients, given that it's a stroke cycle, would be the front end and the back end. So at the front end here, if the rhythm is good, the boat comes to us, the handle feeds the blade to the water, we push through the footboard, and we get a kind of seamless conveyor belt sort of idea going between recovery here and beginning of the push there, recovery there and beginning of the push. And if that doesn't happen, if we get to full slide and we carry on reaching and we lose posture, or we clutch or kick at it, that obviously could break up the rhythm. Same is true at the back end. Here, we're trying to finish off the good power delivery and then move fluidly back out to this rebalancing position here, so that the boat can return the energy to us in the recovery during the glide. And again, if we get to the finish and people slump, lean away, pancake the blades, those sorts of things, it will interrupt the cyclical nature of the stroke. So that's rhythm in a little bit more detail, but we can go down even a bit more detail than that. Within the drive phase, we've got the legs, trunk and arms sequencing to think about, and each one of those three body segments has a rhythm, and we need to make sure that each one works well. The legs rhythm is the most important one. That's the primary rhythm. So if I push my legs, like that. It begins with a squeeze and gets faster there as I push the footboard away and away. And through the front, it's almost as if I'm pushing the footboard back through the handle. I'm not trying to pull the handle through the footboard, but just to push the footboard through the handle, press down through the knees and accelerate away. So that's the leg rhythm. The trunk rhythm is quite simple, it's just this movement. And as long as there's a bit of ratio, recover, drive, there's a rhythm in the trunk. But the trunk rhythm is based on the leg rhythm. So if the legs are pushing with the right kind of rhythm here, and then the trunk starts to build off that rhythm, and finally we get the arm rhythm coming in, and the three things together create our rhythm during the drive. That's why sequencing is important. So if we bum shove, or we open the body, or we clutch on the arms, then we've disrupted the cleanliness of that rhythm. So one of the definitions or components of rhythm is that the work I put in here gives me a return here, and I don't feel I'm putting in more work than the benefit I'm getting out. If we're overworking in the stroke, and we know that we're overworking, that won't feel like a great rhythm. If the boat's moving willingly for the work that we're doing, well then obviously the opposite is true, it's a good rhythm. Therefore it shouldn't feel heavy, it should feel responsive. That would be part of rhythm. If the boat doesn't respond and it just feels blocky and heavy, well then there's something wrong. So togetherness of the crew, synchronicity is a big part of rhythm, the feeling that we're sharing the movements, making the movements at the same time. When it's a loading phase here, we're all loading. No one's trying to accelerate in the wrong way or work out a sequence. We're pushing when we're pushing, we're pulling when we're pulling, we're accelerating when we're accelerating, and we're resting and recovering when we should be as well. So it's all of those things. It's a sense of time, it's a sense of control, it's just a sense that I'm doing my share in the boat, and sometimes in a big boat like an 8 or a quad, occasionally you can feel like you've got half the boat rather than an eighth of it or a quarter of it. Obviously you don't want that. So then we also need to think about when a rhythm goes wrong, what do we do to try and make it right? So if we think of a racing situation, off a racing start, we know that the first few strokes here feel quite heavy as we begin to get the boat going, and that would be a normal feeling. And then maybe after 10 strokes or so we've got this high hull speed. It almost feels like it's free speed for maybe another 10 strokes, doesn't it, where you're riding a crest of a wave or something, and because the speed is there, it's quite easy to produce rhythm. So boat speed is important. We have to create the boat speed. But as you get tired in a race, people technically start to fragment, and it gets harder to do a really good, honest job like you can when you're fresh. So I think there are a couple of ways of tackling the situation where the rhythm is not good and you need to make it better. One would be to imagine we're rowing along at race rate here, and the cox or the person making the calls would call for a push there. So you're basically adding more to the drive phase to try and make sure that the relationship between the drive, the power in, is giving you the return that you want. And pushes work pretty well. I mean, we want to win the race, so we need to push ahead of other crews, but we also need to keep pushing out a good rhythm. And so it's something I think most crews would do. The problem is that if you're already really fatigued and you're at that point where you can't give anything much, that kind of push may not work. And sometimes if a push is done and people know it's happening and they over-anticipate it on the way forwards and sort of try and grab at the work, well then it can have the opposite effect. It can actually make matters worse. The other way of doing it is simply to calm things down. So imagine we're rowing along at 36 and we're a little bit hunched over the finish, chasing, haven't quite got the ratio of chasing the boat like this. If you can have the confidence to just press it there and release and just open the angles up a little bit more, give it that fraction of time. And it may be that the rate will drop a pip or so, but we've taken out the rush, the tension, and we can actually start moving together again and moving with the boat. And once we've done that, it only takes a few strokes, there's a good chance we can then all say, right, now we'll push and we'll put the speed back in the hull and go back on the attack. It does take a lot of confidence to take that approach though, but it can work pretty well. When it comes to solutions and drills and things we can do in training to try and work on rhythm, eyes shut is a good one, because obviously, as we said before, when your eyes are shut, you take away these visual reference points. You just have to feel balance, feel the relaxation, feel the boat under your feet, the weight of the oar, hear the sound of the oar going in, make your connection and so on. Eyes shut is very good. Working with a low damper setting, if you're on the ergo, can be quite good, because if you take the work away, the loading away, you're freer to move in a rhythmical pattern. The heavier we make it, I put this up to 10, the load on here would begin to restrict and affect the cleanliness of my movements. So playing around with gearing. In the boat you can't always do that, but you can play around with slide length. So if we're maybe rushing in the last bit of the slide and getting the front end wrong, well then there's nothing wrong with doing some rowing at half slide or 3/4 slide, and then after a few strokes go back out to full here, because we've now figured out where the mistake is and how to control that bit there. Pressure variations are very good as well, so you might do 10 strokes at one rate, 10 at another, and go up, 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 down, 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 up and down, up and down, because the boat's speed has then got to accelerate, and then run and run, and you get that relationship between acceleration and glide, which is fundamental to rhythm. So I think, in summary, rhythm is an important thing to get right, of course, and when we're actually out there rowing in the boat, the decisions are, what thing are we going to do at that particular moment to improve the rhythm? And it could be press and sit with the finish a little bit longer, let the boat run a bit more. It could be move off through the hits better, closer to the water, whatever. That's one of the key skills, is knowing which of the multiple things that are going on in the stroke cycle are we going to tweak or adjust to just keep that rhythm absolutely in tune. And it is a kind of a tuning sort of idea, I think, rhythm. There's always some kind of rhythm. It's just whether it's a really perfect one or not. Anyway, I hope that's stimulated some thought and debate, and see you next time.